Hi everybody, it's Sarah. I so wish I could meet with you all in person, but my life took a little bit of a crazy turn over the past month, and I just have a lot more obligations than I had prior to intensive weeks. So I'm sorry I'm asynchronous when I said I would be synchronous for this presentation, but I'm really grateful that you're all watching this anyway. When I submitted my narrative leadership proposal, I was working part-time in a church, so I was pretty comfortable with my work-school balance even though I was taking 2 classes right now. I submitted a project for the proposal that intended to do podcast interviews with 12 individuals and walk them through their stories. A few days, literally, after my proposal submitted, we had a pastor resign effective immediately, and I was pushed into a full-time role, taking over educational ministry and technology with the 12 hours a week I had left. So it's been a little nuts, and though I can hire 2 people to help me after COVID is done, in the meantime, I'm running around pretty stressed. So I knew my project needed to shift, but because I had committed to doing the podcast project, it wasn't a possibility to shift out of that realm. So I shifted within that realm. So this project is not entirely what the proposal said it was going to be. The presentation I'm giving you today is on 6 podcast episodes. 6 episodes with people that I could interview at strange hours of the day or night because they're close to me. 6 episodes with less interview prep and more conversation as it happened. To compensate for the time lost in creating the other episodes and the prior interview times, I made a 10 to 14 page packet for every participant. This packet drew things out that they said in their podcast that stuck with me. It also gave them my noticings, my appreciations, and my wonderings, falling in line with our narrative circles in this class. Dr. Millis in May had asked how I would help this be a transformational experience for my participants, and I felt like giving them all of my wonderings and some resources that I knew about might be the most transformative action I could take with that short encounter. So what I present to you today is not what I had originally planned at all. But life isn't what I had planned either. So to get started, why don't I introduce you to my 6 participants of my podcast. My first participant, Holly, is my very best friend. Holly deals with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder type 2, and she's currently pregnant and has to adjust her medications to keep her and the baby safe. So meet Holly.
Right. And I just feel like people that have a story, and we all do, but people that have a deep, dark story to them tend to have a lot to share.
My second participant is my very own wife, Liza. Liza has quite the story revolving around her upbringing in the Catholic faith and other religious trauma that followed her into adulthood. So please meet Liza.
And I think being able to, worship in such an open and affirming place has helped me to sort of uncover that. And that is that nobody should ever feel like they shouldn't be able to ask questions, like they have to believe something just because somebody tells them to believe it. And nobody should ever feel like, God is looking at them and frowning upon them or withholding any of his goodness from them because of the way that they are, because of who they are.
My third participant is my wife's best friend, Kelly. Kelly is a mom of 5, and the birth of her granddaughter very recently has caused some emotions to resurface that surround the father of her first child, who is no longer in the picture.
Like, he and Dylan had a great talk, and Jeff told him, you are my son, and it doesn't matter that my blood doesn't run through your veins. He said, your heart and my heart are combined. I've been your father since the first breath.
My fourth participant was Ashley. Now, Ashley was a college roommate of mine from my party days back in undergrad. She's become a military spouse in her late 20s. It was not a life she expected. Her husband joined the military after they were already married, and she gave up her career as a thriving music therapist.
Doing some things of like reframing how you look at your life and your experience, and that's where resiliency comes from, is really like looking at what's happening to you or what has happened to you in a way that can be proactive and productive, and not, not just wallowing in the negative, but like reframing it into something that can be, positive.
My fifth participant was Ryan, who is my stepson. Ryan is an 18-year-old college freshman who just finished his first semester during COVID-19, and he's still struggling with what it looks like to have to become an adult.
It's definitely weird knowing that you are an adult, and it's this feeling like you should know what to do and you don't, and sometimes you just need to understand that you can ask for help even though you're an adult, and even though you feel like you shouldn't need to, it's always okay to ask for help.
The last participant is actually me, Sarah. I did not interview myself because that would be a little odd, but I did have my wife interview me. I felt like it was only fair for me to be interviewed after I asked everyone else to interview with me. So I focused mostly on my diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. I feel like my whole purpose in life is around serving other people. And I think that though there are times where my mental health might be a little bit more at ease if I wasn't working, I don't feel like I would have as much of a life purpose. And for me, I feel like purpose is everything. Like I need to know what I'm here to do, and I feel like I'm here to help people and to serve people. So the reports that I made for everybody looked like this, and I'm going to do this very briefly because I know I don't have a lot of time, but I customized the images and the report to their specific story they told. So the first page is just their cover page. Then I wrote them a thank you letter for participating that was unique to them. I then did a description of the 3 words or phrases that I asked them about themselves. So for example, Liza, I asked about her younger self and her older self. For people who just gave me the words, I also did definitions for them. I did a statement that stuck out to me and impacted me from what they said. I did an explanation of noticings, appreciations, and wonderings, and what I'd be offering them. I gave them all of my noticings from their story. I gave them all of my appreciations from their story. And I gave them a lot of wonderings from their stories. I mean, they were long stories. We spent about 45 minutes together with all of them. So they got quite a few wonderings. And then I gave them some resources that I knew about that I thought might help them move forward from where they had told me they were currently at. And closed out with just a quick prayer for 3 things that changed for everybody for their continued growth. So that's what the packet looked like. This project has deepened my understanding of narrative leadership because it caused me to be still and to sit with people as they told their stories. It also encouraged me to listen without bias and present them wonderings that could help them grow as humans. And the people I interviewed seemed impacted as well. They seemed to appreciate the opportunity to tell their story, and they seemed like they felt heard. This project made me realize that listening to stories is even more important than I thought. I listened to 5 stories of people that I knew well, and I told 1 story that I knew incredibly well. And it still felt like the first time I had really sat down to listen to those people in those stories. The project went well. I plan to schedule follow-up conversations and podcasts so that I can see where the wonderings took everybody. And for future podcasts, I might give people more prep time on some of the difficult conversational topics. I also might try to understand the struggle a bit more before the podcast begins so I can walk them through it a little bit better. I feel like all of the texts that we read really did help with this project, but 2 helped more so than others, and those were Recreating a Life and Man's Search for Meaning. Recreating a Life was a text that I actually recommended to all the podcast participants in their resource page, and it really helped to shape the way that I worked with them as I helped them tell their stories. I feel like the text gave me an insight into the mind and purpose of a spiritual director who walks through stories with people, and it really did help to shape my approach. Frankel's text helped shape my approach because all of the stories I heard held pain in them, and some held a great deal of pain. I kept thinking of Frankel's writing and his ability to see the beauty even in the most painful moments, and I tried to help my participants reframe their pain as well, especially the feelings and emotions they had that were negative about themselves in regards to that pain.